I always thought Christmas morning was supposed to feel warm, soft, and full of hope. But that year, it felt like the house had swallowed all the air, leaving only pressure sitting heavy on my chest. I stood in the living room doorway, watching my parents smile at my older brother, Ethan, like he was the son they had been waiting for. The giant red bow on the floor should have warned me something big was coming. But I didn't understand how big until Dad said, "Go ahead, Ethan. Open it." He pulled the long, shiny keys from the small velvet box, and Mom laughed like she had won a trophy. Ethan looked confused for half a second, then the realization hit him. "Alexis," he whispered. "For me." My parents nodded proudly. Everyone clapped. Everyone except me. I tried not to look shocked. I tried not to look hurt. I tried to pretend I didn't see Mom watching my reaction. She always watched me that way, like waiting for me to break so she could say she expected it. Then Dad turned to me. "Oh, Megan, we got you something too." He handed me a tiny plastic bag. Inside was a simple metal keychain shaped like a star. No box. No ribbon. Nothing special. My heart dropped, but I forced a smile. "Thanks," I said quietly. Mom leaned closer, her voice low. "Be grateful." I didn't know it then, but sunrise would expose everything they were hiding, and my life would never be the same. Everyone kept talking about Ethan's new car like it was the greatest event our family had ever experienced. Dad kept saying things like, "He earned it," and "boys need motivation." Each sentence felt like a dart aimed at me. I stood beside the window, twisting the cheap keychain in my hand, pretending to admire it so no one would see my eyes burning. Ethan rushed outside to see the car. The rest of the family followed, cheering and taking pictures. Mom didn't even look back to see if I was coming. I stayed inside. The cold air from the doorway brushed my arms, but I didn't move. I didn't want my face showing up in any picture beside that car. From outside, I heard Ethan shout, "This is insane." "Thank you." And Mom answered, "You deserve it. You always have." The words hit harder than the gift itself. I backed away from the door and went to the hallway bathroom, where I finally let myself breathe. Not cry, just breathe. I didn't want their actions to control me. I didn't want to look weak. But deep inside, something shifted. A small, sharp feeling grew in my chest. It felt like a warning, or maybe a promise. I didn't understand why the difference between our gifts was so big. I didn't understand why they kept acting like Ethan was the only child who mattered. But I made one silent decision. I would find out the real reason, and I would not let this break me. The rest of the day was like a movie I wasn't invited to. Relatives kept asking Ethan to show them the new car, and he did, proudly. Every time he revved the engine, the whole neighborhood heard it. I could almost feel the sound shaking inside my chest. At dinner, Dad couldn't stop bragging. "You know, we've been planning this gift for months," he said. "We wanted Ethan to feel supported as he starts his future." Mom nodded. "It's important we invest where it counts." She looked right at me when she said it. I kept eating, pretending not to notice, though a storm was building inside me. I wasn't jealous of the car itself. I was hurt by what it represented. They didn't see me. They didn't value me. It was like I was only there to fill a seat at the table. After dinner, everyone gathered in the living room again. Mom announced, "Let's do one last round of small gifts." Her voice was sweet, fake sweet, the kind she used when she wanted people to like her. She handed Ethan a watch. I got a scented candle. People laughed softly as if it was normal. But as the night went on, I noticed something strange. Mom kept whispering with Dad. They looked tense, even scared sometimes. Whenever I entered the room, they stopped talking. Something was definitely going on, something they didn't want me to know. And sunrise was getting closer. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ethan's new car key sat proudly on his nightstand across the hall, shining even in the dark. My little star-shaped keychain was on my desk, looking almost embarrassed to exist. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Why did they go so far to favor Ethan? Why the huge difference? Why the secretive looks? Why the whispers? Just after midnight, I heard footsteps. Slow, careful, moving toward the living room. I sat up and listened. It was Mom. Curiosity pushed me out of bed. I walked quietly toward the stairs and peeked over the railing. Mom was sitting on the couch with her phone in her hand, staring at something for a long time. Then she whispered, please let this work. We can't let Megan find out. My heart nearly stopped. Find out what? She deleted whatever she was reading and stood up quickly, like someone who had just made a scary decision. She looked toward the stairs, and I ducked back before she saw me. I waited until she went back to her room, shutting the door behind her. Then I tiptoed to the living room and checked the trash bin. A crumpled paper sat at the top. I opened it carefully. It was a bank slip, a very large transfer, under Ethan's name, and beside it, a second paper with my name. But the number next to my name was scratched out, completely blacked out. My stomach twisted. Something was very wrong. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun had just begun to rise, turning the sky pink and orange. My head was heavy from everything I'd seen the night before. I needed answers, but I also needed to stay calm and smart. If I rushed, they'd hide more from me. Ethan was already outside, cleaning his new car like it was made of gold. He waved when he saw me, but I wasn't in the mood. I went straight to the kitchen where Mom was making breakfast. "Morning," she said without looking at me. "Morning," I replied softly. I sat down and watched her. She looked tired, not physically tired, but stressed. Her movements were sharp, rushed, like she was hiding time in her hands. I waited, then finally asked, "Mom, were there supposed to be 2 bank transfers yesterday?" She froze, only for a second, but I caught it. "What do you mean?" she said too quickly. I swallowed. I saw something. A paper. It had Ethan's name and mine. Dad walked in at that exact moment, and Mom shot him a warning look. He sat down slowly, clearing his throat. "Megan," he said firmly, "you shouldn't go through things that aren't yours." That didn't answer my question, I replied quietly. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Mom stared at her hands. The silence was thick, heavy, full of secrets. "We'll talk later," Dad finally said. "No," I said. "We'll talk now." They both looked at me like I wasn't supposed to be strong enough to say that. But I was, and sunrise had already begun shining through the kitchen window, forcing every shadow to show itself. Dad sighed deeply, like the truth weighed more than he could carry. Mom avoided my eyes completely. I could feel something growing in the room, tension mixed with fear. But not fear of me, fear of what I had seen. Mom finally spoke. "Megan, there are things you don't understand." "Then explain them," I said. She pressed her lips together. "Not everything is meant to be questioned." "That sounds like an excuse," I replied. Dad rubbed his forehead. "Fine. Yes, there were 2 transfers. One for Ethan and one for—" He glanced at Mom as if asking for permission. "For who?" I pushed. "For you," he said at last. But things changed. My heart thumped hard. Why? Why was my amount scratched out? Mom's shoulders stiffened. "Because we made a choice," she said. "What choice?" She hesitated. Too long. Then she said, "Ethan needs our support more than you do." I felt heat rise in my chest. Based on what? Dad stood up, frustrated. "Because he's our hope. He's the one who can carry the family forward." "And what am I?" I whispered. They didn't answer. For a moment, the room felt completely still. Empty. Like I could see the wall between us more clearly than ever. Then Mom said, "You don't need big gifts. You're independent. You always have been." It wasn't a compliment. It was a justification. A weak one. I stared at them both, feeling something inside me tighten. Not anger, not sadness, but determination. If they were hiding this much over a simple transfer, what else were they hiding? Something told me the sunrise truth wasn't fully revealed yet. Not even close. After breakfast, I went to my room and closed the door softly. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. The words, "Ethan is our hope," kept replaying like a broken echo. I sat at my desk, staring at the scratched-out number on the bank slip in my mind. They didn't just take money away from me, they erased me. I pulled out my notebook, where I usually wrote school notes. But instead, I started writing everything I had seen, heard, and felt. I didn't know why, but something inside me said this was important. Evidence mattered, even with family. As I wrote, I remembered something strange. Last month, Dad had argued with someone on the phone about documents and deadlines. At the time, I thought it was work-related. Now I wasn't so sure. My thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock. Ethan walked in without waiting. "Are you okay?" he asked. I shrugged. "I'm fine." He sat on my bed. "Look." I didn't know about the money stuff. If I had, I would have said something. I studied his face. He looked honest, confused, maybe even guilty. "It's not about the car," I said. "There's something bigger happening." He nodded slowly. "I feel it too." We sat there in silence for a moment. Then Ethan whispered, "I think Mom and Dad are hiding something from both of us." My stomach tightened. So it wasn't just about the gifts. This was something deeper and darker. Ethan and I didn't always get along, but in that moment, we understood each other in a new way. He looked troubled, like he had been keeping something to himself. I leaned forward. "What do you know?" I asked. He hesitated. "I overheard them talking a few weeks ago. Something about closing accounts before she turns 18. My breath caught. "She? Mom?" "No." He looked right at me. "They were talking about you." A cold wave rushed through my body. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure," he said, voice steady. "Dad told Mom that if they waited too long, they'd lose control of something. I don't know what." My hands went numb. Why would my age matter? What would they lose control of? What were these accounts? Before I could process, Mom's voice echoed from downstairs. "Ethan, come here for a second." He stood, looking uneasy. "Don't say anything yet," he whispered. "Let me see what she wants." He left quickly, closing my door behind him. I stayed frozen for a moment, staring at the floor. Then I heard it, their voices downstairs, tense, quick, sharp. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew they were arguing about something important. I moved quietly toward the stairs and listened. Mom said, "You weren't supposed to tell her anything." Ethan replied, "I didn't." But his voice was shaky. Dad snapped, "This is getting out of hand." My heart squeezed. Whatever they were hiding, it was big enough to scare all of them. I stepped back from the stairs before they caught me listening. I hurried to my room and tried to breathe. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to appear, but I still didn't know the full picture. A few minutes later, Ethan returned. His face was pale. "What happened?" I asked. "They're stressed," he said. "They said I need to stay out of things I don't understand." "That's not an answer," I said. "I know." He ran a hand through his hair. "Something's wrong, Megan. Really wrong." I knew that too. Then he sat beside me again and whispered, "Do you remember Grandpa's old lawyer?" "Yes. Mr. Dalton. He called last week. I picked up the phone because I thought it was a friend. But he asked for you." "For me?" Ethan nodded. He said something about final instructions and that it was important you came to see him before New Year. My heart started beating fast. "Did you tell Mom and Dad?" "No. I didn't think it mattered. But now," he shook his head, "now it makes sense." I swallowed hard. Grandpa and I had been close, closer than anyone knew. He used to tell me, "You're sharper than everyone thinks, Megan." Maybe he had left something my parents didn't want me to know about. Before I could respond, Dad shouted from downstairs, "Both of you, down here now." Ethan and I exchanged a look. This felt like the moment everything would begin breaking apart. We walked downstairs together, our footsteps slow and heavy. Mom and Dad were standing in the living room, arms crossed, faces tight like they were ready for a battle neither of us signed up for. Dad spoke first. "We need to clear the air." I stayed quiet. Mom continued, "You two are getting ideas in your heads. Dangerous ideas. Dangerous." The word made my stomach twist. Dad pointed at me. "You're digging where you shouldn't dig." I felt a spark of courage rise inside me. "If there's nothing wrong, then why are you so afraid?" Mom flinched. Dad's jaw tightened. "Enough," he said sharply. "You're a child. You don't understand adult matters." I lifted my chin. "Explain them." He stared at me for a long time, then said, "Your grandfather didn't know how to manage money. That's why we stepped in. We protected this family." "That's not true," I said. "Grandpa was careful. And he trusted me." Their eyes widened just a little, enough to confirm I had hit the truth. Then Dad said something that made my skin go cold. "Whatever he left behind is ours to decide. Not yours." My voice shook, but I didn't back down. "What did he leave?" Mom's lips tightened. "Drop it, Megan." "I won't. I said. Dad stepped forward. If you keep pushing, you're going to make things worse for yourself. Worse how? He didn't say. But I knew one thing for sure. They were terrified. And terrified people make mistakes. After that tense confrontation, Mom told us to go to our rooms and stay out of trouble. Dad stormed into his office and slammed the door. Ethan and I walked upstairs in silence until we reached the hallway. He turned to me. We can't keep sitting and waiting for them to tell us the truth. I know, I said. Ethan hesitated, then added, if Grandpa's lawyer wanted to see you, it's probably important. We should go. We? I asked. Yeah, he said softly. We're in this together now. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel alone. We planned quietly. Mr. Dalton's office was only a short bus ride away. If we left early the next morning, Mom and Dad might not notice. Ethan said he'd distract them if he needed to. I wrote everything down. Times, steps, what to say, what not to say. The more I planned, the calmer I felt. But late that night, something unexpected happened. I heard Dad on the phone again. His voice was low, serious. She's starting to ask questions, he said. I don't care. Make sure the documents are locked until next week. She can't access anything yet. Documents. Locked. Next week. My heart pounded. This had to do with Grandpa. With money. With me. I quietly backed away from the door, thinking only one thing. Tomorrow morning might be my only chance. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. The sky was still dim, but the sun was slowly rising, washing the world in a faint gold light. Today felt different, heavy and bright at the same time. I got dressed quietly, grabbed my notebook, and slipped into the hallway. Ethan was already waiting. You ready? He whispered. Yeah. We moved quietly down the stairs. Mom and Dad were still asleep. Ethan grabbed 2 granola bars for the road, and we slipped out the front door without making a sound. The cold morning air hit my face, but it felt refreshing, like it was pushing me forward. We walked quickly to the bus stop. As we sat down, Ethan said, whatever happens, we deal with it together, okay? I nodded. Together. The bus ride felt long, even though it was only 15 minutes. My mind kept racing. What if Grandpa had left something for me? Something important? Something my parents didn't want me to know? When we reached the law office, my heart was beating fast. The building was tall and quiet, the kind of place where secrets lived. We walked inside, and the receptionist looked up. Do you have an appointment? No, I said. But Mr. Dalton told me to visit before New Year. I'm Megan Hayes. She froze for a second. Oh, she said. Please wait here. She hurried into the back room. Ethan and I looked at each other. Something big was coming. A moment later, Mr. Dalton stepped out from his office. He looked older than I remembered. Gray hair, glasses, kind eyes that studied me closely. Megan, he said softly, I've been expecting you. My stomach tightened. Why? He nodded for us to follow him. Once inside his office, he closed the door and sat behind his desk. Ethan and I sat across from him, tense and silent. Mr. Dalton folded his hands. Your grandfather left something for you. Something very important. And he trusted me to give it to you when the time was right. When was the right time? I asked quietly. Your 18th birthday, he replied. But given recent events, I think you deserve to know sooner. My breath caught. Recent events? Did he know what my parents were doing? He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick envelope sealed with wax, Grandpa's seal, the one he used for important papers. This, he said, placing it in front of me, is your inheritance. My hands shook. I didn't touch it yet. Ethan whispered, her inheritance? Mr. Dalton nodded. Your grandfather left each of you something. But Megan's portion came with strict instructions. I frowned. What instructions? That no one, not even your parents, could access it, and that it must remain in your name alone. My heart pounded louder than ever. No wonder Mom and Dad were scared. No wonder they were hiding things. Mr. Dalton leaned forward. And Megan, that inheritance is much larger than you think. My hands shook as I finally picked up the envelope. The wax seal was cold and smooth, and I could feel its weight, not just physically, but like it held years of hidden truths. Ethan leaned closer, his eyes wide. Open it, he whispered. I hesitated. Something told me to wait, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. I broke the seal and unfolded the papers inside. The first page was a letter in Grandpa's handwriting. Megan, I know your parents may not see your worth yet, but I do. You are smarter and stronger than anyone believes. This inheritance is yours alone. Use it wisely. I swallowed hard. The next pages detailed bank accounts, property, and investments, all under my name. The total? Far more than I ever imagined. My jaw dropped. Ethan's hand brushed mine. Megan, this is huge. I nodded slowly, trying to absorb it. But then I saw something that made my stomach twist. The final page had instructions. Keep this a secret until you decide it is safe to reveal. Your parents may try to block you. Trust your instincts. My mind raced. Mom and Dad had tried to erase me from the money. They had believed I wouldn't notice. But Grandpa had planned for me, even if they didn't. I clenched my fists. It was time. Time to reclaim what was mine. And to make sure they couldn't hide from me any longer. We left the office carefully, making sure no one was watching. Outside, the city felt colder, but somehow freer. I clutched the envelope tightly and Ethan stayed close. I can't believe they tried to hide this from you, he said quietly. Your parents, they must have been planning something for months. I know, I whispered, and now I finally understand why they acted so differently. Why they treated me like I didn't matter. Ethan looked at me, confused. But it's our family. Are you going to confront them? I paused. I need to be smart about this. If I make a move too soon, they'll notice and try to stop me. He nodded slowly. So what's the plan? I don't know yet, I admitted. But first, I need to understand everything. Every account, every document Grandpa left. Then I'll decide how to act. For the first time, I felt a shift inside me. Not fear, not hurt, but determination. A quiet power that made me taller, sharper. By the time we got home, the sun was higher in the sky. I didn't know what Mom and Dad were plotting next, but I knew I had the advantage now. And I wouldn't waste it. 4 years, I had been underestimated. 4 years, they had believed I was weak. Not anymore. Back at home, everything felt the same, but I knew it wasn't. I walked past Ethan's car, past Mom's fake smiles, and into my room, holding the envelope like it was a shield. I opened my notebook and began cataloging every detail from Grandpa's papers. Accounts, passwords, properties, stocks. Every number, every instruction, every condition. I wrote like my life depended on it, because it did. Hours passed. By the time I looked up, the room was dark. My parents called us for dinner. Mom's smile was tight, as if she sensed something had shifted. Ethan noticed it too. He whispered, "They know you found out." I nodded slowly, pretending to eat. "Maybe," I said softly. Dad kept glancing at me over his plate. Every glance felt like a test, a challenge. I realized they had never expected me to fight back. They had underestimated me. And I loved it. After dinner, I went to the living room, pretending to watch TV. But I wasn't. I was thinking, planning, waiting. Every step I took, every word I spoke, would be part of my strategy. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to argue. I just needed patience and precision. By the time they went to bed, I had a plan forming in my mind. Tomorrow, I would take the next step. And by the time they realized it, it might already be too late. The next morning, I woke early again. Ethan was still asleep, exhausted from last night's planning. I quietly slipped out of my room and walked to Dad's office. The door was slightly open. I peeked inside. Papers, files, locked drawers. Everything I had seen in Grandpa's notes was there, but with one difference. Dad had begun moving money, transferring accounts, and creating new documents. I realized something terrifying. If I didn't act fast, they could erase all traces of what was rightfully mine. I took a deep breath. I had the key information from Grandpa's papers, and I knew the steps I needed to take. I quietly went to my desk, pulled out my notebook, and began writing a detailed plan. Every move Dad made, I had a counter. Every secret they tried to keep, I could reveal. Hours later, Ethan woke and joined me. "Are you ready?" he asked. I nodded. "We're going to do this smart. No mistakes." We spent the morning rehearsing every detail. Timing, words, and actions. By noon, everything was set. And by sunset, Mom and Dad would begin to see the first cracks in their perfect plan. That afternoon, I walked into the living room with confidence I had never felt before. Mom and Dad were on the couch, unsuspecting. "Hi," I said calmly. "Hi, Megan," Mom replied, smiling, though it didn't reach her eyes. I placed the envelope on the table. "I know about the transfers, about the accounts, and about the inheritance Grandpa left me." Mom froze. Dad's face turned pale. "You don't understand," Dad said. "We did it to protect you." I shook my head slowly. "Protect me? From what?" "From knowing my own family's trust." Mom looked down. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "It's happening," I said firmly. "And now you have two choices. Help me secure what's mine, or watch me do it myself." Their eyes met. Fear and guilt danced between them. Ethan stepped forward. "She's serious, and she knows everything." I felt a surge of power. For the first time, I was in control. Mom's hands trembled. Dad's jaw tightened. And then, a faint smile crept onto my face. Because I knew the truth, and the truth always wins. Over the next few days, I executed my plan carefully. I used Grandpa's instructions to secure my inheritance, moving accounts, confirming documents, and ensuring nothing could be blocked by my parents. Mom tried subtlety. She asked questions, tried to charm me, even offered to help. I pretended to consider her advice, all the while following Grandpa's steps exactly. Dad tried intimidation, reminding me of family rules and responsibilities. I smiled politely and ignored him. Ethan watched, amazed at my composure. "You're like a different person," he whispered. I nodded. Years of being underestimated makes you stronger. By the end of the week, every account was mine, every document locked under my control, just as Grandpa intended. Mom and Dad realized too late that they had been outmaneuvered. Every attempt to manipulate me had failed. And the key moment came when I called Mr. Dalton. He confirmed everything. The inheritance was fully mine, legally untouchable. For the first time, I felt an overwhelming mix of relief and triumph. Mom and Dad were finally forced to see me as I always knew I could be: smart, patient, and unstoppable. On Sunday morning, Ethan and I sat by the window watching the sunrise. The city looked peaceful, unaware of the battles waged within our home. Ethan looked at me, smiling. "You did it. You really did it." I smiled back. "We did it," I corrected. "Together." For years, I had been ignored, underestimated, and treated like my worth didn't matter. Now that had changed. Mom and Dad entered the room quietly. They didn't speak at first, just watched. Finally, Mom said softly, "We underestimated you, Megan." I nodded. "Yes, but now you know. I'm not a child anymore." Dad sighed. "We see that now. We're sorry." I forgave them, quietly, without words. Not because they deserved it, but because I had grown beyond anger. Sunlight filled the room, and for the first time, I felt complete, strong, in control of my own destiny. And as the light hit the envelope containing my inheritance, I realized one thing clearly. No gift is ever truly small. Sometimes, the smallest gifts, like knowledge, patience, and courage, can change everything. And sunrise had revealed the truth. After sunrise, Mom and Dad finally seemed to realize the full weight of what had happened. They didn't say much, only watched as I organized the documents on the dining table. Every bank account, every property, every investment was now securely mine. I didn't realize," Mom whispered finally. Her voice was quiet, vulnerable, unlike the controlling tone she always used. I didn't reply immediately. I looked at her carefully, studying her expressions. "You didn't think I'd notice. You didn't think I'd understand. But I did, and I acted." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "We were only trying to protect the family." I shook my head. "No, you were trying to control me, to erase me. But Grandpa trusted me, and now I know my worth." Ethan nodded beside me. "She's right. We saw it. And now, nothing you do can change that." Mom's eyes welled up. We just wanted what we thought was best." "You didn't know what was best," I said softly. "Grandpa did, and now I do too." For the first time, silence fell in our house without tension. It was peaceful, but full of lessons. I realized then that the sunrise wasn't just a literal moment. It was a symbol of clarity, truth, and transformation. Mom and Dad would need to rebuild their trust with me, and I would decide how much of it I wanted to allow. But I knew one thing: nothing could stop me from standing in my power again. The rest of the day passed differently than any day before. I felt lighter, more focused, like a weight had been lifted. Ethan stayed by my side, helping me go over every document again, making sure nothing had been missed. Mom quietly offered to make lunch. Dad sat in the living room, reading the newspaper, but occasionally glancing at me as if he were learning a new truth. I realized that this moment was bigger than money. It wasn't about a Lexus, a keychain, or even the inheritance. It was about recognition, respect, and understanding my own strength. I looked at Ethan. "We make a good team," I said. He smiled. "Always. But don't think I'm letting you do all the thinking." I laughed. "Deal." By evening, Mom came to me. "Megan, I want you to know we see you now, and we're sorry for how we treated you." I nodded, my heart calm. "Thank you." That's all I needed to hear. For the first time in years, I felt like my place in the family was secure, not because they said so, but because I knew my value. And I also knew that true strength isn't about being cruel or rich. It's about being smart, patient, and persistent. Sunset came, and the sky glowed gold. I held the envelope Grandpa left me and smiled. Everything had changed. Days turned into weeks, and the house settled into a new rhythm. Mom and Dad treated me differently now. Not perfectly, but with more care and respect. I realized they had learned a lesson the hard way. Underestimating someone like me was dangerous. Ethan and I worked together to manage my inheritance carefully. Every property, every account, and every investment followed Grandpa's instructions. I felt proud, not just because of the money, but because I had earned the knowledge and control myself. One afternoon, I walked past the Lexus in the driveway. Ethan waved, laughing, showing off the shiny car keys. I didn't feel jealous anymore. I only felt empowered. The keychain I had received on Christmas morning, I pinned it to my bulletin board. It was small, simple, but it reminded me of how far I had come. Mom watched me place it there. "You've grown so much, Megan," she said softly. I smiled. I had to grow. No one else would do it for me. Dad nodded quietly. "You're remarkable, Megan." Truly. And I realized something important. Life doesn't hand you respect or gifts, you earn them. And sometimes, the smallest, simplest things, like patience and intelligence, can become your most powerful weapons. The injustice of that Christmas had transformed me, and I would never forget it. Months passed, and our family found balance again. I stayed close to Ethan, our bond stronger than ever. Mom and Dad were still learning to navigate their mistakes, but they were honest with me now. I often reflected on that fateful Christmas morning. The Lexus, the keychain, the whispers, the hidden accounts, it had all been a test of my strength and intelligence. And I had passed. Grandpa's inheritance wasn't just money. It was trust. Faith in me when everyone else doubted. That gift taught me patience, strategy, and courage. Ethan said one day, "You're like a mastermind, Megan." I laughed softly. I guess I am. But it's not about being smart. It's about understanding people and believing in yourself. Mom came into the room quietly. She placed a hand on my shoulder. "I see you now," she said. I nodded. And that's all that matters. The lesson was clear. Cruelty, favoritism, or wealth don't define a family. Understanding, honesty, and respect do. And I had earned my place in it. On the next sunrise, I stood at the window, looking out at the neighborhood bathed in golden light. Everything felt different. The house, the family, even me. I picked up my keychain, turning it over in my hand. Once, it had symbolized humiliation. Now it symbolized growth, intelligence, and patience. The Lexus in the driveway gleamed, but it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was my power to act, to think, to reclaim what was mine with strategy and calm determination. Mom and Dad had faced the truth. Ethan and I had grown closer. And Grandpa's faith in me had been realized. I smiled, realizing the final twist of life. It wasn't the gifts that defined the morning. It was how I responded, how I transformed, and how I claimed my own destiny. I placed the keychain back on the board. A small object, a big lesson. I was no longer the overlooked child. I was Megan, smart, patient, fearless, unstoppable. And the sunrise had revealed the truth. No one could underestimate me ever again.